Hi everyone and welcome back to Vino Wonders. So today I have a tag video for you guys. I don't usually do tags on this channel just because I'm not sure if they're engaging enough or if I have like a personality that's sort of fun enough to do these tags, but if you like them, please let me know in the comments below. I was recently tagged by my friend Moon over at Moonlight Scrolls, who you should totally follow if you don't already. I will leave a link to her video below. And basically this is a tag that has been in existence for many years on Booktube, where we basically freak out about all of the books that we have read thus far in the year and sort of use that as a jumping off point into the second half of the year. And I definitely need that motivation. So without further ado, let's get into the questions. The first question is, what is the most beautiful book that you've read this year? And this is actually a book that's a little bit different than my usual reads. I really love coffee table books and art books, and this is the Monocle Book of Italy. I'll do some cutaway shots, but basically this book is kind of a compilation of different photos, articles, and basically just a snapshot of Italian culture. And I find it so beautiful because it talks about literature, eating, wine, travel, and it even extends into things like monograms, logos, like what makes an Italian brand so iconic and what kind of thought goes into the different aesthetics of their brands. It's amazing. And if you're the kind of person who doesn't tend to read books that are very relaxing, I would definitely recommend sort of picking up one of these Monocle books or picking up books in the same vein, just because they're so relaxing to read and they're just so beautiful. The next question is, what's a book that made you happy? So like I mentioned, I'm not really the type of person who gravitates towards books that have the happiest themes or plots or most uplifting sort of character arcs. But one book that has sort of stood out to me this year is The House on the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. So this book is very interesting because it's sort of set in a universe that's sort of a magical alternative to ours, but not in the way that you would usually see it in series like Harry Potter or other middle grade series. So in this world, yes, there's magic, but the people with magical abilities are sort of stigmatized by the government and they're kept under very close monitoring. And our protagonist is this guy whose job it is basically to inspect the different orphanages, which is a misnomer because none of the kids actually get adopted. And so our protagonist is very good at his job, and he one day gets assigned to this very peculiar orphanage that is on an island in the middle of the Cerulean Sea, and the kids there are high risk, or like they're classified as dangerous because some of them are species that have not yet been identified. One of them is the Antichrist. But basically the book is a really heartwarming novel because it talks about how even if some people might seem scary on paper, they're actually a lot kinder and a lot more capable of empathy and of good and of changing things that we might seem to think are predestined for them. This was a very enchanting and uplifting read, and I would definitely recommend it. The next question is a book that made you cry. Okay, so this is Let Me Tell You What I Mean by Joan Didion, and I really found this book strangely emotional. If you've read any Joan Didion before, you'll know that she's not really the kind of person who writes in an emotional way, if that makes sense. She tends to present things in a very journalistic way. She likes to dwell on facts, observations. It's very show not tell, if that makes sense. But I found this a lot more intimate and a lot more emotional than her usual work. I actually didn't cry as much in The Year of Magical Thinking that I did with this book, just because you can tell that these essays were written with so much care, if that makes sense, so much carefulness. And I guess in this, a lot of the people that she talks about are people that she admires, people that she knew or knows, and I just found that very, very touching and heartwarming. And I guess it's precisely because she isn't the kind of author to usually be that sort of sentimental over things that this really, really spoke to me. The next question is new favorite character, and I guess with this I will also answer the next question, which is new fictional crush, and that would be Thomas Cromwell from Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. Thomas Cromwell, I guess he's fictional. It's historical fiction, so even if he existed in real life, my crush is on the fictionalized version of Thomas Cromwell. He just seems to be the kind of guy that gets things done, and yeah, he's hot. The next question is biggest surprise. I think the biggest surprise for me was Minor Detail by Adanya Shidley. I expected this to be kind of a straightforward narrative, and I expected it to be the kind of book that would sort of dwell on very particular details and not really have a plot, but actually like that's just the story within the story, if that makes sense. And when I finished this, I found myself very, very surprised and very, very shocked at the effect that it had on me, which was strangely closer to home than I had expected. I was expecting something very historical, I guess, and something that I could feel kind of removed from, but it was strangely haunting to me. The next question is most disappointing read. So now it's time for me to roast Mr. Kafka, which is honestly unfair because it's not his fault that a bunch of people decided to publish his letters posthumously. So this is Letters to Milena by Franz Kafka. These are basically letters to, as it says, Milena, who was his translator and eventually kind of became his long-distance lover. They never actually got together in like a boyfriend-girlfriend way, but they met a couple of times, and for most of their lives they just wrote to each other. And I find this disappointing just because I guess it's just like he was just a normal guy simping over a girl he liked, and I don't know what I expected, but yeah, this was kind of a letdown for me. The next question doesn't really apply to me. That's best new release that you read. I don't really read new releases because I live in the Philippines, so I'm not the kind of person that's gonna be like, oh yeah, like this is coming out. And that's also why I never do those videos of like new releases I'm looking forward to in 2022 or something. It's just, you know, that's the kind of thing that I think people in the Western world can do because most publishing is very Western centric, and so they would be in touch with publishing houses and they would be in touch with which releases are coming out. But for the Philippines, even if you attempted to kind of, you know, get a handle on what would be released, you wouldn't be able to have access to it quickly enough anyway. So I don't really do that unless it's from a particular author that I like. And there is someone that I want to mention, but this is more of me looking forward to her next release, and that is Sally Rooney. I'm a huge Sally Rooney fan, and yeah, basically her new book is coming out in a few months and I already pre-ordered it, so I'm very excited for that pre-order. Okay, the next one is best sequel. Actually, all of the sequels I'm reading this year I'm going to read in the second half of the year, so I don't really have an answer to that. Okay. And last but not the least, what is the best book that you've read this year? Hands down, like there was no question about this, the best book that I read this year was definitely The Argonauts by Maggie Nelson. This is memoir, it's creative nonfiction about her life as someone who's married to a trans man, and it also explores different themes of heteronormativity and different themes of what it means to be someone who is queer. And it's also in a way a memoir about becoming a mother, because it does take place in the window sort of when she meets her husband, Harry Dodge, and when she gets pregnant and gives birth to their baby. And gosh, it was so good. It was perfectly executed. Maggie Nelson's language is just the perfect combination of being direct and still being kind of elegant and beautiful, if that makes sense. She's not the kind of person that's going to put you off by kind of just aestheticizing different sentences and using flowery language to basically say nothing. But she's also not the kind of person that makes things like too plain or makes things not fun to read anymore. And I think the juxtaposition of that in her writing is really what makes her so amazing. Of all the books of hers that I've read, I think this is the one that best showcases her abilities as a writer, as someone who excels in both poetry and prose, memoir and fiction. It was just beautiful. And if I can recommend one book to you guys of the books that I've read this year, it would definitely be The Argonauts by Maggie Nelson. So that's it for this tag video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave me a comment below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!